So Lewis actually did his final year dissertation on coffee production in um, in Eastern Africa, and he actually did this in a very innovative way. But also he got down to the brass tacks of what was actually going on. And sometimes when people do research, it can be a little bit of esoterical navel gazing. But Lewis actually got down to what was going on in Kenya and some of the issues around coffee production and distribution. So without further ado, I'll let Lewis introduce his talk. Thanks, Lewis, for doing this.
Thank you, David. And can you see my screen before I start moving on to nothing? Lovely, perfect. Yeah, like David just said, this is just going to be a little bit of a brief introduction to sort of East African coffee issues and some of the challenges in which the farmers, both on sort of on the Kenyan border in Uganda, on a mountain called Mount Elgon, which is a volcano. And as you can see from this picture, some beautiful ripe coffee cherries there. So just moving on, just something a little bit about myself. I graduated from the School of Business at the RAU 2019, which seems quite a while ago now. I know it was a couple of years ago in regards to what my hairline looks like now. And then I've gone straight into the world of student union presidency, which I'm thoroughly enjoying, especially now. And I'm also studying a master's part-time at King's College London in international affairs, continuing sort of that route down sort of the activism potentially sort of way. But like David just said, I did my honours research project, a dissertation on sort of the coffee issues, and I'll get onto how I chose that topic later on. But I was very lucky enough, and I was given a chance to do something different to the 15,000 word sort of slog, whatever it is. I was lucky enough to be able to do a video alongside about 7,000 words, which I'll post the YouTube link to that, well, to a sort of a little bit of a doctored version in the comments later on. But yeah, so as you can see here, this picture was taken from memory about March, I think it was, right on the Kenyan border with some coffee farmers as well. You can sort of see from there, you've got a really good mix of generations and gender as well. So yeah, so why did I choose the sort of the fair trade sort of issue, and why for my dissertation? I think it's sort of I wanted to recognize sort of the mixtures of various sort of marketing potential issues or whatever, but the one thing that really made me realize about fair trade, and I must say from this point of view, this would be regarding fair trade in coffee. Fair trade have been doing some really great things in all sort of way of life, from everything from sort of clothing to rubber. So they're really great foundation, but this is more focusing on the fair trade in regards to coffee. And I first realized when sort of companies, I think it was actually Cadbury's I first noticed, dropped the fair trade foundation and introduced their own new one called Cocoa Life, where they could focus a little bit more on their own projects and having it a bit more in-house. And I was actually doing a piece of coursework in my second year of university when I realized, well, hang on, I've always, been a son of a farmer and a coffee shop owner as well. I've always realized, well, hang on, why is that happened? So I kept on looking into it, into my own research, and that intertwined quite nicely directly into when the dissertation sort of handing started to appear, if you like. And then I realized a little bit more. So I go, well, how why is this, why are lots of other sort of companies sorting to not just solely drop fair trade, but looking into setting up their own sort of foundation? And then I looked into a little bit more and found out some issues. And I don't want to sort of, teach the sort of, especially the other panelists, how the fair trade sort of premium works, but just for some of the participants. So back in March 2019, when I was over doing research, the fair trade premium at the time, and I'm quite sure it's still the same now, so just basically the farmers would have to pay roughly around about $100 annually to be fair trade certified. So that meant they were able to get a tiny little bit more, about 10 cents extra per pound of green coffee beans. But in the grand scheme of things, when to us, $100 US dollars doesn't seem much does it really? You know, some of us might spend that on a meal for two with wine. But over there, when you're living off a dollar a day, you know, that's a huge sum of money, sort of out of your sort of your daily sort of your yearly intake. So I'll get onto a little bit later about some of the issues that the farms I interviewed had with that. So there is a lack of sort of producer awareness. So here you can see I'm talking to a sort of one family here who had been farming the same acres on the volcano for years and years, and you can sort of see the various sort of you know, the ground's very basic, and it was a very harsh environment to farm in. As you can see, I've got, please forgive the mad scientist hair I've got going on there. But in regards to the farmers, they had no formal training or any sort of formal certification in regards to how to grow their crop. A lot of it was down to, you know, passed down by word of mouth from father to, you know, father and mother to child, whatever, passed on from neighboring farmers. And Fairtrade might, they said they gave training. I spoke to the local sort of ministry official in the area as well. And she promised me that they gave the farmers, each farmer, at least a certain amount of days a year for training. And when I asked the farmers, they hadn't had it, and they'd never had it. And some of those farmers have been farming it for 70 years. So there's a real sort of skewed image about what's going on. And sort of some of the machinery being used, especially for the pulping of the cherries, it was ancient. You know, it was a handheld, hand-propelled Bendel machine, which for taking off the husk. You know, that sort of machinery my grandfather and great-grandfather would have used 100 years ago in the UK, but you know, even older. So it really, and it's all done by hand, and everything was moved by hand, dried by hand. So it really did sort of made my eyes and my family, when I was over there, our eyes open. And sort of the one thing that really made us really realize was that the farmers, even though they grow coffee and it's readily available to them, you know, for a while they thought they were actually growing bullets for the British Army. They didn't actually think they were growing coffee. And it was like, right, okay. And for us, coffee isn't a luxury, it's a necessity, especially for me in this new COVID world. And I know David will agree with me with the amount of meetings we're having at the university. You know, coffee is definitely a necessity. But they, you know, these farmers had never, they couldn't even describe the taste. They'd never drank it because they wanted every single ounce of what they were producing to go to make sure they had the money coming into their back pocket. But sort of going back to what I briefly said earlier about the fair trade premium. So obviously I said it cost the farmers $100 to be certified as fair trade, and that then allocated them that extra 10 cents for every pound of coffee beans that they produce, parchment coffee beans. However, in order for them to get that money, they would have to go to the bank to get the $100. It was the only sort of real way that they can, and the security for that loan obviously is the only thing really of asset of worth for them, which is their land. And obviously when they can't repay it because they obviously have to feed their families, etc., then their land's taken away from you. So it's a really potentially skewed sort of way in how which the fair trade sort of certification fee is put into place. And I know from sort of other research, they don't really take into account how much money is being produced by the farmer. It's just solely a flat fee. There you are. And it'd be interesting actually to see what the rest of the panel had to say across the Atlantic about sort of how it all works. But sort of again, the farmers didn't really receive much support from government officials in comparison to other coffee producing nations. And I just wanted to let you know about sort of a lack of consumer awareness on our point of view. And I really like this this sort of infographic. It really sort of spoke volumes to me. Obviously, I don't know where they're getting their coffee for £2.50. It's definitely not the atrium at the RAU. I think it's a lot more there. But if you actually look into the shot of the coffee, how the espresso, it's only 1 pence of that £2.50 goes to the producer, to the grower. And when you're buying sort of a product like that, you would hope at least more than 1 pence would go to the grower growing the coffee, shipping it across the country, across the world. Sorry, you know, you're paying more for your paper cup and the lid to go on top of that. So again, it really, this really did make me wonder. It's like, well, hang on a minute, you know, there is very much a monopoly around this. So it did, again, really spoke volumes to me. And I know that isn't so particular to the fair trade sort of issues, but this is something which I know a lot of the sort of the farmers potentially know how much that would be over there. Oh, sorry, just quickly, just again to sort of say, as I'm just whizzing through this, because I'm very looking forward to any sort of questions into sort of the rest of the sort of the fair trade sort of principle. And throughout my research was, I think I spoke to roughly about sort of 30 to 40 farmers, and it was very much so they knew they were growing coffee, but they, you know, again, like I said, they didn't know the taste, they didn't know the texture, and it really, you know, as myself as a farmer's son over here, it really sort of hit me. I was like, well, hang on, if they put so much passion and they so gladly showed me how to you know, harvest the crop, how to pulp it into the parchment and to dry it, whatever. It really did. It was harrowing, really, for them to say, you know, no, we can't afford it. You know, they live in a very simple, you know, very, very simple sort of, well, mud hut, to be honest with you. And that was that. Everything is done by hand, and it was a very sad correlation between what was going on over there and what's happening in our day-to-day shops on the high street when we're allowed to go there. But just to finish off, I know I've very much through this and sort of I've very much sort of overthrown many things and potentially overlooked, but it was just if there is any sort of questions or comments, I've got, you know, plenty of a sort of thoughts about sort of how the certification sort of process works. For me and my sort of thoughts, and I must stress this is my personal thoughts, and I did write to Fairtrade, but as of 2 years, I'm still waiting for a reply. Is, you know, for them to have another look at how they can support their farmers in Africa, especially in the Eastern African sort of you know, beautiful part of Africa, which it is, to actually give the support to the farmers in which they are giving, well, let's say they are giving, sorry, and to make sure that in all the sort of adverts that you see, to have the representation of the little guy, of the small farmer with only 1-2 acres, which is, you know, rather than compared to the bigger boys down in Brazil, which are goodness knows how much. So it is a really interesting sort of topic, and I can go on and on and on, but I've only got 10 minutes and I don't want to mutter on like I am. But if there is any sort of questions, I'll stop sharing this now. But this last picture actually, so that's two of my friends over there. That's Fred on the left in a darker shirt, and Rogers. So they work in the Mbale district with the coffee as agricultural officers, and they're very, very, you know, absolute. The amount of knowledge they've got of agriculture is incredible. Be interesting to get them to the UK one day to give a lecture, but we'll have to wait to see. But I'll stop sharing. If there is any comments or questions, please do fire away.
So we've got time for a couple of questions to Lewis. Does anybody have any questions? Either type it in the chat or just come online and talk.
I should say questions about the coffee, not what I'm wearing or whatever.
I'll ask a question, if I may. Steve Burr from the University of Lincoln. I was interested in what you said about the, let's say, minimal amount of training that the people that you spoke to had. If they were to be looking for any training of any kind, and I mean that in the widest sense of the word, what do you think they would want or appreciate, and how might they best be able to receive it?
Yeah, so that is a really, now I've often wondered the same sort of thing, but the issue is, and as you know, it sounds horrible, but if they don't know what they need, they don't know how to ask all that is there. You know, when somebody invents I don't know, a new mobile phone, we didn't know 10, 20 years ago we all wanted and needed touchscreen phones, or whatever. It's just an example. But actually, about 3 weeks after I left that district, there was a huge landslide, and some of the farms actually in those pictures were very badly affected, and actually some of them died. And that was all that was from was sort of basic irrigation. You know, they didn't have any landslide protection. They just didn't know. They just didn't think about it. And it's a they do ask for training and they do receive it. However, it is very minimal. But now I know, I have looked into it, and I spoke to Rogers, and he says it is getting better. And I see there's a question about a cooperative, which would be interesting to look at. But it's, again, if they don't know what to ask for, it's a really harsh sort of thing to sort of gauge, really. And to be brutally honest, and to sound overly coarse, there is bigger issues over there, really, as well, in addition to this coffee issue, which is a tricky thing.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's interesting.
Got a question from Diana Davis. Yes, so they do have cooperatives, yes, but no, it wasn't covered. Don't worry, Diana. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, so I spoke to a cooperative, and I can't remember the name of it now, but it was in the local sort of Mbale district. Plenty of them, but because there's so many farmers feeding into so many different cooperatives, the sort of certification boards have very much a sort of a monopoly on them, and they don't really allow sort of the cooperatives themselves to actually have just a sole flat fee. That's something that the cooperatives really did look into and support. But again, it's just trying to get the farmers to all feed into a cooperative, and actually trying to find somebody who would like to run the cooperative is another issue. It's a very much sort of difficult sort of situation, really. But I know they have started to work. I know I spoke to a government official, and they are putting a lot more sort of funds into training and running into cooperatives, so they can put sort of the emphasis back onto the farmers. But again, it's just like a bit like Steve's question there, is if they don't know about cooperatives, who's going to tell them, and who's going to let them know? Because it's all well and good myself going for a week and suggesting doing this, but if without sort of a project manager or whatever, it's a really difficult sort of scenario to hit. Oh gosh. I hope I've covered sort of your question, Diana.
Hello, Louis. This is Harrish.
Oh, hello. How are you doing?
Yeah, hi. So I would like to ask a question about Africa is like a higher temperature area. So, growing the coffee plant is is it like more difficult, right, for the farmers? So, like, how do you sustain it?
Because I see your question. Is your question as well sort of just plant more coffee trees as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So that exactly. But they've only got a certain amount of acres each. It's all well and good for for me as a Welsh farmer to say to my neighbour, it's like, well, if you're not making enough money, get more sheep. It's very, very easy for us to say that to them. However, and a lot of, and I'm sure the other sort of panelists will know, the coffee plant itself is a mature plant. It takes time for it to grow and to be ready to actually to bear fruit, to bear cherries. It's not a case of you plant it in a year, you plant it like wheat and it will be back up by the spring or the summer. It is very much a case of it's a mature plant. You have to tend to it, you have to look after it, and again, it's not really the easiest sort of way to go through it, really. And sort of they do look at sort of the best way is to get more productive trees over there. But obviously they also try to go for an organic premium, which obviously means they can't use sprays or pesticides or whatever. Could the REU run a cooperative and have this seen by their academics? David?
I've already put an answer to that one. So a lot of countries have a different company structure for agricultural cooperatives that allows them to come together and to trade and to be governed, because there's lots of cases where people have formed a cooperative and they've basically forced down the price of the farmers, because it's not really a cooperative, it's more of a Ponzi scheme. So so countries like India, for instance, they have a highly regulated cooperative system that is regulated by the government and a sort of company's house, and that works very well. And it makes sure it's very fair and transparent to everybody who's part of the cooperative. So that's a much better way of doing it than us getting involved with it.
Yeah, and I think and the thing with sort of the cooperative, if it's not done through a non-profit charity, you've got plenty of more people actually having to pay, and potentially less people, less man hours and labour on the coffee farms. You're taking them away from their picking jobs, because it's all they pick all the coffee cherries by hand, and then you're having to pay somebody else not to do that, to do something else. I know it's again, it's a bit tricky down the cooperative route, really. But
the thing is that you've identified with your mug is that you earn more money from processing coffee beans than growing coffee beans. So the cooperative should move up the value chain a little bit, and then they'll earn a lot more money. Right. We'll stop that one there, because we do have 5 people to get through. Thank you very much, Lewis. I know you have to go.
Thank you, Lewis.
Well, should we go to India now then? Let's go to Harrish.
Yeah, coming to the value chain, coming to the value chains in coffee in India. So I would like to present this today. So coming to the coffee sector in India, so India is the 6th largest producer of the coffee in the world. So Indian coffee has created a niche for itself in the Indian international market. So Arabica coffee from India is also well received in the international market. So in India, there are like 2 major crops, that is like Arabica and Robusta. So Arabica is the most they are having the most export value. So it is like like containing the more caffeine amount. So Arabica is the most exporting value in India. So coming to the coffee production in India, so Karnataka is a major state, and Kerala and Tamil Nadu. These 3 states will contribute 99% of total coffee production. So coming to the market situation, niche coffee retail format is growing at 10 to 12% a year. Organized coffee retail business is like 25 billion rupees. So coffee consumption in India has increased from 55,000 tons to 75,000 tons in the last 3 years. So we contribute the 3% of world coffee production from India. So coming to the export, 80% of the total produce we are exporting, and 20% we are using. That's it. So coming to the process, so as you can see the diagram here. So harvesting, after the reception, after the dry processing, semi-dry processing, and wet processing, at last it goes to the storage. Yeah, there are certain things will happen during the seed to the cup. It's like planting, harvesting the cherries, processing the cherries, drying the beans, milling the beans, exporting the beans, tasting the coffee, and roasting the coffee. At last, like they grading, and again, there after the packaging. After that, we are buying the coffee and we are making the coffee. So coming to the value chains for the certified and organic coffee in India. So here, certified coffee. So as nowadays we have seen, in India consists of more number of marginal small farmers. So coming to the certified coffee, certification is a major thing nowadays. So yeah, small farmer cannot afford the price for the certification. So here they're producing, and companies are they're taking the lower price and they are getting the profits here. So coming to the organic coffee, yeah, here input is too high, and the farmers has to wait for a certain amount of time to get the certificate, and also they have to wait for the time as well. So yeah, here strategies for upgradation in the Indian coffee value chain. So to lead into the good quality, soil testing is the one of the strategy I will recommend, because people they have to know how to apply and when to apply and what to apply and how much to apply, which will reduce the cost of cultivation. Here only we are reducing some amount of money. So second is like good agricultural practices like looping of the shaded plants, removing extra branches of the tree, training and pruning of the plant, help in good vegetative growth of the coffee plant, which can lead to the good yield. So in this scenario, there is more labor problem, as we have seen a lot. So different machineries has been introduced. So we have to make it possible to get that machinery, and we can reduce the certain amount of time, and this become the alternative for the labor nowadays. So blockchain technology is a good initiative for small and marginal farmers where they can collaborate directly to the buyers. So by creating the more number of farmer producing organizations helps their farmers can improve their position in the value chains, and also by creating the awareness about the group certification definitely reduce the cost of a certain amount of money, and also it will increase the standards of value chain. So coming to the conclusion and suggestions. So conclusion, the main conclusion is, yeah, organic certified is more beneficial as compared to the conventional coffee farming. So it gains to it gains the more number of profit for the every players in the market, and also quality assessment highlighted some of the challenges faced in the value chain and explored the possibility of the conservative based activities. Yeah, this also as the main conclusion for me. And suggestions like creating the awareness and educating the people about the coffee farms and its functions definitely will increase the value chain of the coffee. So yeah, thank you for everyone. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Harrish.
And also, in recent days, like previous, like last week, I did a small presentation on like in aquaponics can we grow coffee plant. Yeah, just 1 second, like I'll just show that.
Okay, that's the bonus of today.
Yeah, as you know, like all you know about the aquaponics, right? Yeah, farming of the fish and plants in a single recirculating the system. Yeah, the based on the fish becomes the nutrients for the plants, and the plants in turn remove these nutrients from the water, purifying it for the fish. In this way, the fish waste is used to grow a plant crop that becomes a second income stream for the little extra cost. So in fact, it works so well that the plants become the primary crop by the volume and the value. So coming to the advantages, there are most number of advantages by the aquaponics. It's a water efficient system. So we don't get any soil borne diseases because we are not using any soil here. And also we are not using any chemical fertilizers and also pesticides. So this is the process of, as you have seen the diagram, this is the process of aquaponics. So here the some of the steps to start an aquaponic farming business. So here the main theme is like cultivating the coffee in your aquaponics garden. So yeah, is it like it's really possible to grow the aquaponics garden in a? It's really possible to grow the coffee in the aquaponics. So here, new aquaponics growers to use media bed when the planting the coffee. So this is the most practical system because it's easy to set up, unlike the deep water culture. So here we can maintain the pH up to 6 to 6.5. Yeah, growth medium is the main clay is a good choice. So water and air temperature, yeah, we can know like 64 to 70 degrees is enough for growing the coffee. So spacing is mentioned like 3 feet away from the other plants. So sunlight, yeah, do not place your coffee plant where direct sunlight can hit. As you know, like it's a shading plant. So fish type, it is the main point. So we can recommend the only the fish which produce the most large amount of the excretion is a goldfish. So coffee requires more nutrients. Coffee plant requires the more nutrients. So we can recommend the goldfish is the main thing for the coffee plant. So yeah, as you know, like a coffee plant will reach its maturity after the 4 years. Then you can see the coffee cherries and all. So here here pests will attack your coffee plant. So we have to look on that. Yeah, here as you know, we have seen the some of the pest bugs, aphids, like mealybugs, mites. So these are the natural and organic ways to fight off pest. As we are growing the natural excreta for the plants from the fish directly. So one of the common issues that you might encounter when the growing a coffee plant is that leaves will continuously drop. So the best solution is to move your plant to the brighter area without exposing it to the direct sunlight will reduce that problem. So yeah, thank you.
Wow, that was fascinating. Well, we've got one question from Diana.
Yeah.
Interesting to hear that blockchain is being used in India. How widespread is this? And is the IS infrastructure robust enough to support this.
How is Reddy's okay. Yes, definitely in India, the aquaponic system is like majorly growing. Like it's recently developed mainly. In my place, one of the farmer is growing. Like he is doing the alternative method for the aquaponics. It is like RAS system. In this system, he is not like directly growing the plants above that. He is just removing the excreta, like full excreta of the fish outside, and then he is using for to the plants so that the fish size will increase. There is no like we can't see the excreta in the fish area. So yeah, fish will grow like major size. So the farm is getting benefited both the plants as well as like fish. Yes, sir.
And welcome everyone to this presentation on the coffee value chain from the perspective of Ivory Coast. We'll be looking through maps of the country from a global perspective, then a regional one, studying a few facts about the country and then about the value chain. Importantly, we'll look at the different perspectives at each stage of the value chain, looking more in depth at the issues that are important at each stage. From here, we'll look at arguments as to why the supply chain can be considered fair, and on the other hand, why it might be considered unfair. And we'll finish with a synthesis given the arguments presented. So here is the Northern Hemisphere. You can see the borders of Ivory Coast colored in red, just to the north of the equator. What's important to note is it's a population of around 25 million people with an adult literacy rate that's below 50%, a life expectancy that's below 60 years, and a CFA franc where at the end of 2019, £1 would buy around 770 CFA francs. If we zoom in a bit, looking at the region, we see the neighbors Liberia, Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Ghana. If you consider the ships that leave from Ivory Coast, normally they will leave from the port of Abidjan or about 100 kilometers to the west from the port of San Pedro. They will leave the Gulf of Guinea and transport the goods across the Atlantic Ocean, mostly either to Philadelphia in the United States or up to Antwerp in Belgium or Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Some facts relating to the trade of coffee from Ivory Coast. There are two main prices to consider. The first, called the farm gate price, in French, the prix Borchamp. Every farmer in Ivory Coast will be guaranteed 550 CFA francs per kilo, which translates to around $1,000 per ton. And if we look at the world market price, which is largely determined by the London and the New York stock exchanges, 1 ton of coffee beans, and that's the same coffee bean that's sold for $1,000 per ton at the farm, will sell for close to $2,600 per ton in world markets. And if we look at production of coffee in Ivory Coast in the last, from 2011 to 2019, per year we see 83,000 tons per year that is produced, and this represents, taking the world market price, $0.2 billion per year. Each coffee bean will start at the farm. From here, it's transported from village to town to export harbor, and that process is managed by cooperative managers. From here, the responsibility of shipping the beans in containers is handled by companies that are normally headquartered in either the United States, in Europe, or the UK. Global commodity trading firms, on the other side, will handle futures and options contracts, and they will normally be headquartered in London or places like Zug Geneva, or Zurich in Switzerland. From here, wholesalers and retailers such as Starbucks or Waitrose have the responsibility of packaging the beans and selling them on to consumers. If we take each step, there are important issues that are relevant. The most important one being the living income of farmers. From the Ivorian perspective, as we'll see later on, the majority of farmers receive an income that is below the threshold of poverty, and it keeps them stuck in this situation. From the perspective of transporters, we see an incredibly weak infrastructure with poor quality roads, as well as poor quality vehicles. Moving further along the value chain, an issue that deals with cooperative managers is the certification. We've seen the presentation by Louis Bebb in Kenya, where he spoke about fair trade. It is also an issue relevant in Ivory Coast, with certain companies adopting fair trade schemes and others deciding to pursue an in-house strategy of certification. Other companies still deciding not even to get involved with the market of Ivory Coast. Zooming out further, we see that maritime security is important for the shipment of the coffee from a port of San Pedro to Amsterdam, for example, and commodity trading firms will always be interested in optimizing their profits when they're studying the different sectors. So not only coffee, but comparing it with other sectors in the commodities markets. A company like Waitrose and Starbucks necessarily tries to improve their brand image to retain their customers so that they can continue to generate sales. And from the consumer's perspective, they would like to know that when they buy the coffee beans, what is indicated on the label is actually true, that they can trust that the certification program is actually improving the livelihood of farmers, for example. So given that global image of the chain, its perspectives and the issues, we're trying to answer, is it fair or not? On the one hand, yes, it is. Exporters are able to sell their beans at a higher price, the 2,600 US dollar world price compared to the domestic price of 1,000 US dollars per ton. If we look deeper into the argument, we can see that it's rather flawed, but from an economics perspective, this opportunity of international trade means that farmers and exporters in Ivory Coast have access to foreign buyers who can offer higher prices. And this is a photo of the port of San Pedro in Ivory Coast. This graph explains that if, which is the case today, the farm gate price is lower than the world market price, it means that Ivory Coast has a comparative advantage in producing coffee. So it makes economic sense for this nation to produce the coffee beans and to export it to foreign buyers. Some further arguments to say that the system is fair is that thanks to international trade, the world has increased variety of goods. Ivorian exporters can benefit from economies of scale, that the increased competition domestically means that as a nation, Ivory Coast benefits. And finally, that thanks to the trade with other countries, we have an enhanced flow of ideas. On the other side, and this is actually a stronger argument, we see that while the resources are allocated in a way that is efficient in certain contexts, it's not always fair. And in the case of Ivory Coast, this is most blatant when we see the poverty that is widespread across the sectors of the farmers and the transporters in the value chain. One might say the cause of this is that the world market price is not high enough to support a decent farm gate price. One might say that the farm gate price needs to be raised. In any case, we see many instances like this in this photo where income is so low that political stability is not there, that security along the roads where the coffee is transported is corrupt, and it's a system that's perpetuated. A second argument is that technological innovation is simply inadequate in the country. So trucks like this that transport coffee beans are normally imported from abroad, having already completed a decade of service, and they're rarely tested for climate efficiency. Most importantly, though, we see an asymmetry of power between the farmers, the traders, and the wholesalers. There is a lack of bank branches at points of trade where the coffee is shifting hands, and this inhibits the robustness of the Ivorian financial system. This is further weakened by the infrastructure, with roads that are not built for rainy seasons and vehicles that simply cannot cope. So overall, if we look at the arguments for and against the system being fair, in the interest of time, we simply look at the first two stages and see that it is incredibly unfair at -5 as an impact on fairness. And if we take the different issues together and give a weighted average, we see -1.4, giving us a summary that in the way that it currently works, the system is more unfair than it is fair. And this is because the asymmetry of power that pulls down the farmers is more important than the small benefits of trade that the country currently benefits from. Some references, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? That was quite an analytical viewpoint of the issues around the Ivory Coast. Any questions?
I've got a question.
Hi,
David
Louise.
is here. My question is, looking at that scale we just looked at, is the degree of fairness the same between 1 and 2 as 4 and 5? Because it's a linear scale, but my question would be, when we're looking at that scale, is every interval equal when you were looking at fairness?
It's a great question, Louise. So yes, the intervals are taken equally. I hope that answers the first question. The point of this table and also of this continuum is to focus on the first two stages only. So if you look at the score of -5, so that's the worst score you could possibly have on fairness, and looking at the later stages from cooperative manager to shipping and onwards, they've all been marked 0, simply to show that further investigation is needed. A few of the stages have been marked in red to show that there's an expectation that the impact will be unfair. So it's expected that the number will be between -1 and -5. And so that would be the case for the certification schemes that are in the beginning stages of implementation, but there's evidence already in the literature that they are not as effective as they are being advertised. And if we look at transparency, for example, that would also we expect it to score low just from the literature that we see in consumer behavior. But at this stage, that is what needs to be researched further.
Because I think it's really interesting moving from subjective to objective measures. But the question then becomes, what do the numbers mean? So if you're looking at risk or you're looking at impact on the farmer, the fairness between 1 and 2 may have a different impact on the farmer to going up by 1 interval from -4 to -5. So as you develop your work, I think it'd be really interesting to explore that more.
Definitely, and I agree, Louise, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Oh, Steve.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question picking up on Louise's question, which is about this shift from subjective to objective. Is there any way we can relate the meaning in the different contexts? You know, you can talk about I mean, my first flippant question was really, what does fairness mean? What does unfairness mean? Which we could talk about. But putting that to one side, it would be really interesting to somehow, and I don't know how, equate changes for the different people, particularly farmers, to what that means to me as a coffee consumer in a developed country. Is there any way of meaningfully or representationally making some kind of connection? I think that would be quite interesting, because it's not just value per bag of beans that you buy, it's to the continuation, isn't it? I can say, well, I don't care, I'll buy cheap beans, and if a farmer goes out of business, another farmer will come along, and if the country goes out of business, another country will come along. So there's clearly more to it than that, but I wondered if there's some way of forming at least an illustrative relationship between the different points on that chain.
If I understand correct, so I'm trying to understand the question. To me, as a researcher, we're trying to assign a number so that we can manage it later on. We're just trying to measure something that might be inherently qualitative.
Yeah.
Just so we have some scale to work with. But I understand what you're saying, that we're trying to gauge whether there's a connection between the different stages of the value chain. And
I suppose from a research point of view, I'm critiquing your scale, and I get why you're doing that, and that's valid, but I'm saying maybe you can push back and say, reevaluate whether those quantities that you've assigned, what meanings they have in different contexts.
Definitely, and I can only agree.
Okay, great.
We've got a question from Diana. How transparent was the transaction process to determine fairness, and how was it delivered?
Hi, Diana. Again, a difficult question. So when you're asking about the transparency of the transaction, this table hasn't considered the phase where the consumer buys the coffee beans. It simply looks at the perspective of the farmer and how the infrastructure keeps them in such a weak state. So in that sense, this particular presentation hasn't considered the entire value chain from start to finish in equal measure. I hope that answers the question. I don't see it if I'm sharing screen.
Okay. Okay, we'll stop there because we've got two other presentations.
I would like to add one more point.
Okay.
Yeah, like for increasing the like coffee value chain, we can do like we can gather the farmer producers organizations in different locations and different places. So if they gather, like a large number of people can definitely get the profit. So if they are in the supply side, and agri enterprises such as traders, processors, exporters at the demand side of the value chain, so it will create the market linkage between them. Definitely it will work in my point of view.
Do I understand, Harrish? So once there's more cooperation between the different farmer communities, then we might see more of a link in increased fairness if we improve one side of the value chain. So better coordination between the farmer communities
and the agri enterprises such as traders, exporters, like that.
Right.
If they are in the demand side, the suppliers in the supply side. So if there is a market linkage between them, definitely like directly, like without the middleman, we can farmers will get the benefit.
That makes sense. I guess if we're trying to improve coordination, then what needs to be respected is the business confidentiality at each step, because each actor is there to make a profit, right? So why would the trader want to give up a certain piece of information to someone lower down the value chain? What's in it for them? And we need to find a way to make it more beneficial for all actors.
Yeah.
Okay, Simeon, thank you very much. We're now going to move to Robert.
Well, I am talking about evaluation the global coffee supply chain, but it is really fair or not from a Colombian perspective. What we live here in Colombia. Can you move the next slide, please? So can I? Okay. Here is how the coffee production is important in Colombia. As you can see, this is the political division here in Colombia. Is nearly the 70% of the departments, I mean the states here in Colombia, produce coffee in one way or another. So that makes that that the Colombia has around 600 towns that are coffee producer. It's almost 65-70% of the all towns in the country, and also make that around 540,000 coffee producers exist in the country. Can you, the next one, David, please? Okay, it's here. So, as the price, of course, this is a business for everyone here. The profit depends on the volatility of the prices here in Colombia, and the prices in Colombia are determined in two ways. The first one, the volatility of the international coffee price that has given in the stock markets. So if you can follow the prices in the international market, you can see that we have a volatilities of 5 or 6% per day sometimes, or 6-7% per week. In this moment, we are down. We are in a bearish trend, but we hope here in Colombia that we can the price will be increased again. Coffee also makes a positive contribution on the social side to maintaining substantial rural employment, because as I told you, we are talking about 540,000 producers exist in the country. Improving the living standards of the coffee producer, especially smallholders. Almost 85% of the Colombian producers are small ones. That we are talking, people has no more than 2 hectares of coffee producers. That means if we're talking about trees, we are talking around maximum 6,000 trees per producer. So we are talking about small producers. Improving access to the coffee here in the country make that improving access to the credit and risk management mechanism, reducing vulnerability to the income volatility, and promoting gender equality. The participation of the Colombian coffee sector within the entire agricultural sector is the 12.5%, and the participation of the agricultural sector in the GDP is around 70.6%. This data, I take it from the National Federation of Coffee Growers. That is the one that unite all coffee producers here in the country, and also we can say that has the monopoly of the commercialization in the country, because we need a license from them. I would like to make one point that watching the other presentations, we are talking that a Colombian producer coffee receive for a ton of coffee nearly $2,500. Is almost the same price in the international market. But the fact that I don't have, the data that I don't have, is how much is the cost of production in the different countries. Because, make the comparisons we receive a good price for our coffee, but at the same time, we make many, we employ too many people. We have many costs that I don't know how profitable is for the Colombian coffee producer are the activity. Okay, it's only that make me the data draw my attention when I don't remember with the guy from Cote d'Ivoire, Simeon, Simeon talk about how much receive the work cost the coffee producers. So it's a point that I would like research a little bit more because it's interesting for me. Sorry, the next one, David. Facts. From the perspective of income distribution, that is what we are talking about, is fair or not fair. From the perspective of income distribution, according to the ICO, International Coffee Organization, the share of exporting countries in the price of a pound of coffee sold in a supermarket remained in between 26.9%, but with the years 1965 and 1998. But as perhaps many people of you know, with the arrival of the free market coffee, that means that break the agreement in 1998, the quota arrangement, the governance of the bean value chain was clearly in the hands of large industry, and the participation of the producing countries in the total price dropped substantially, reaching average of 71% within the following 20 years. We are talking about 1990 and 29. Now, what is happening now? I mean, we are talking, but because if we're talking about the price that receive the producers, the coffee producers that are the seeds of the whole value chain, is very small. The specialty coffee market has generated a higher income for producers compared to the conventional market segments. The higher remuneration has not offset that increasing risk and cost faced by producers. On hand, premiums for specialty coffee and quality coffees were initially significant, but on the other hand, subsequently declined due to the greater relative supply on higher quality and certified coffees. What means this? That at the beginning, we have I mean, there is another way to make more money or more profitable for the producers here in Colombia. And was the whole country in this moment is focused in specialty coffees. It's trying to get specialty coffee. That I think also is why we get a very good coffee. And Colombia is the bigger producer of the quality coffees. But what is the problem? When you want instead to get a specialty coffee, you need a certification. The question is that sometimes the certification is quite expensive and quite hard to get it. We are talking about, for example, Global Gap, like a certification, organic certification, fair trade, like Lewis explained first, is interesting in the market because many people, especially consumers, want to get a coffee that has a certification. But the question is, okay, how much is the cost of that certification? Is not quite cheap. And also, for experience, for my own experience, when you try to get this kind of certification, sometimes your production decrease and the cost increase. This is one point that is necessary to get account. Now, as coffee create new consumption occasions outside the home, for example, with the sale of brewed coffee, the value of the industry expanded significantly. Research about $200 billion, the size of the coffee market. Also, the growth of the value of the coffee industry is also associated with expansion of specialty stores and development of new customized brewing systems. For example, Nespresso, that I think many of you know, or Keurig, this higher income, because the final consumer is paying, not necessarily represent an increase on the queue of the income in the Colombian producers. Yes, because we don't participate exactly in this research, in this profit. Why? Sometimes because we here in Colombia, we don't make too much innovation and research in the commercialization, because here in Colombia, we are working very good in the production. However, we don't know how to sell. It's one of the problems that we have here in Colombia. And also, we don't have the infrastructure, the logistic, the DFI for sale. That is another of the things that make that we cannot participate in the final price. Is why we reduce our income. Also, other hands of the problems that we have here is however, the specialty coffee has increased the price. Also, many people is increasing the coffee. And other countries also are improving their production of specialty coffees. So when when the coffee, when there is many product in the market, the price down. So is what here in Colombia we are trying to do it. We're trying to do it more diversification in the coffee production and in the coffee market, because one of the problems that we have here is that our habit is sell a commodity. I mean, many of the Colombian producers are doing just sell the coffee beans. That's it, dry, of course. The inequality, this inequality has generated a structural situation that complex facility and is difficult to face, and to make here in Colombia worry the future of the tea industry, because if the coffee producers are not profitable, the result will be the end of the production or decrease the production. Sorry, can you do the next? Okay, so in the face of this situation, what is the solution, or what I think can be the solution for repair this inequality in the trade and the fair and the income of this situation for us? I prepare for 4 points. The first one is overcome the challenge. Second one, add value to the origin. Third, design competitive strategies. And the fourth one, introducing innovative ways of scaling business whilst maintaining sustainability. Why? Because we are talking about the environment. Next one, David, please. First, overcome challenge. The challenge that we face, I think there are two that we have to face. The first one is maintaining farm to cup authenticity. What means this? The coffee grower has got a challenge in terms to the end consumer receiving a genuine product. It is important that the original product is kept intact through its journey, from washing, drying, roasting, grinding, all these activities, like the guy from India explained very well, to allow to end a customer to enjoy the authentic farm to the cup. In these days, too many coffee suppliers trying to mix and match different beans and sell to customer, for example, a blend of 3 different origin beans, when the package is labeled become 100% single origin Colombian coffee. for example. And this challenge is to the end customer as well, because there is no way to identify the origin of the coffee. Is why, for example, as I want to explain later, we propose here in Colombia to increase the add value that many activities doing here in the region, I think is valid for many other countries, that when you add value to your product, you increase the income of your production. Is only that no produce just commodities. Next, go to the next step. The second challenge that we face is the value for money. At this point, I think the coffee grower, in terms of how to provide best value for money and keep the coffee production profitable and sustainable, there are many factors that influence to the value of the money. Implementing, for example, innovative practice for sustainability farming, contribution to the local economy, like the others expositor do explain. Increase when we make more activities, we increase the employed in the regions, the coffee producing regions. But also it's important that the customer is able to enjoy the best coffee and an affordable price. In this case, what I mean is that also I think we need to reduce the middlemen. I know this is quite difficult. Really is quite difficult. But I think as producers, we need to start to think how can avoid middlemen and get directly to the customer. I think in these steps we can make more money, and the final customer or consumer gonna receive a better quality coffee and a more affordable price. Add value. Sorry, can you the next one, David, please? Oh, sorry. Okay. The add value. Two slide backs, David, please. That one. The next one is add value to the origin that I explained before. The idea is that if here in the production zones add more value here, more money will stay here, and it's possible, as I explained before, the money, the product when received the final consumer will be the better quality and the better price. Design competitive strategies. For example, here in Colombia, we have many cooperatives. Some of them work, some of them doesn't work. For example, also we don't have many producers. We don't have a scale economies, so we don't have sometimes enough production for one or small producers that get together cannot anyway to get big productions that can help and compromise to the international markets. That one is one of the problems that we have here. We have a good product. We have many clients that are looking for Colombian coffee, but sometimes when they ask for quantities, sometimes we don't have the quantities that the people require. Sometimes also we are trying to throw the cooperatives, association, any of things to fix this problem, but sometimes it's not enough. So I think we need design strategy cooperative strategies, especially in the coffee producers, to make affordable to get international markets. And of course, I told you, avoid middlemen. Introducing innovative ways to the scaling business whilst maintaining sustainability. Well, one of the things that we face when we talk about producers is that if we want to increase production, I mean, we want to crop more plants. Sometimes people think that we have to destroy environment. That one is not necessarily. Sometimes we can replace another crops. We can another lands that have another uses. We can destinate to the coffee producer, but we have to think about the sustainability, because and it's true, but not necessarily only for the coffee. But Colombia has suffered many environment problems because people, the producer, agricultors, has not handled properly the residues, the how to handle water, how to handle the pesticides, herbicides, many things. Is why sometimes the government are asked for the Colombian coffee producers good agricultural good agricultural practices that help us to conserve our environment. Some people are conscious, some people are not conscious of that. But definitely we have to work in that way, because this is important for the sustainability of our business here in Colombia. So that after we can see this point of view, definitely we need more studies, more research, but not only the production, also in the commercialization of our product, and to get the infrastructure to do it, and also the knowledge how to do it, because this is one of the problems. Many people they are very good producer. The cooperative sometimes can make good qualities to get international market, but they don't know how to do it, how put their production or their coffee in the international market. Is why the wholesalers came here and buy the product cheaper prices, and resell it at good prices in the international market. So this is one of the I propose that here in Colombia to decrease the unfair of the price coffee, is that the Colombian coffee producer also go to the international markets. But itself is not easy, of course. But I think is one of the ways, because we need to be more profitable. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much. Let me just stop the slide share. Stop the share there. There we go. Okay. I think we've got a question from Louise. Would you like to answer that? Ask that question, Louise, or shall I read it for you?
Very happy to. My question was about if we move from a relational trust, I know the person supplying me coffee, to certification and an institutional trust.
Yes.
How do we then communicate that to consumers? Can we lose value as we move from relational to institutional trust? And can we trust all actors in the chain to behave fairly in a certificated system?
Well, one of the things that I understand, Luis, about the trust in the commercial relationship is totally true. There is here in Colombia, we started as a pilot. The government, the National Coffee Grower Association, they are giving money, is the way to explain, giving money for associations get certifications. Yes, for example, I know many cooperatives, many associations that get certifications. For example, one association get a certification with easy 100 associated. That means the association get the certification for 100 producer or small producers is what we are doing here. So of course it's not easy because the people, sometimes the producer, the coffee producer, and not only coffee producer, we can say that the agricultors are a little bit stubborn and are a little bit owners. I mean, sometimes the people think and feel that if another other person handle or manage their farm, they're gonna lose the control of the farm. So I think we need more education in both ways. That the people understand that they need get associated to improve in many ways, not only from the profit and the money, also in the relationships or in the quality of life, many things. But I think one of the ways to get trust in the commercial relationship is to get the consumers or the wholesalers speak with associations that get certifications, because the associations can be unify the producers, and they can say that all the associated complement the requirement of any certification. For example, here in Colombia, I remember 5 certifications in organic and in fair trade. For example, EcoCert is one, another one from Norway. But there are 4 or 5, and they are very, very restricted. I think also is why it's so expensive. That the all people in one cooperative, all people that are associated in the cooperative, all the people fulfill the whole requirement of the certification, and they are very, very restricted. And many cooperative has lost the certification for 1 or 2 associated that don't complement the requirement of the certification. I think, Luis, I don't know, I hope I answered your question, is one way to get the trust, one trust relationship. Another thing that also I think is that the wholesaler or just the intermediate middleman visit the country, know the producers, and also they know how is the coffee produced, how the coffee is grown, and know what kind of people they are talking. Sometimes if the people are had studies, have no studies, how is the age, the average age of the producers. I think it's good also that the people visit the country or visit the producers. Anyway, it doesn't matter if this Colombia. But what I feel it is when the international buyers came and visit the crops, make one relationship with the producer and get the confidence of the producer, because the people think, okay, if that guy came to my farm or came to my region and visit us, is because they are really want one buy my coffee and get one long relationship. Is my opinion, and I think sometimes can be reply in different countries. I don't know if I answered your question, Luis.
You have. Thank you very much. Yes, you have. Thank you.
Also, Robert sir, I have another question.
Hi, Harrish.
So,
Harrish, please speak a little bit slowly, please, and a little bit loudly, please.
yes, sir. Okay.
Thank you, Harrish.
Yeah. Sorry for that. Yeah, like I have a question regarding the any corruption is possible during the organic certification. Like, is it possible to get corrupted? Is it possible like any corruption is happening in the organic certification?
Yes,
Like
and
manipulation
I
can be
think
done.
I think it's possible. Of course, it's possible to the corruption in
Definitely,
the
like people
certificate.
can't wait for, yeah, some of the people can't wait for 3 years and simply they won't keep the land like simply. So rather than that, they'll make the manipulations for this and they'll use as a strategy for this, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah, no, it's true. It's why I told you. Sorry, as I mentioned it before, some cooperatives and some people has lost the certifications because they do it. When we do it at traceability in the production, you can discover it many things that broke the rules of the certifications. I'm gonna explain you. For example, I remember 15 years ago, two agricultural producers say, who is gonna discover it that the product has a certain herbicide or has certain chemical, because they didn't know how to discover it. So the people say before many years ago that it was possible to hide all and these practicals that was forbidden. So one of the things that I can say, Harrish, is that every year, usually once per year, the certificate companies visit the farms, visit the associations, and they random visit the farms. They random visit the associations and certify that everything is okay. Of
Yeah, they'll
course,
set
is
the
the
legal documents about this, right? Yes, yes.
exactly. So of course, it's possible to get corrupted, but the systems that the people are designed here in Colombia make that thing decrease. Of course, can you understand me? Do you understand me, Harrish? I mean, it's possible, but the possibility is very low.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Harrish.
Okay, thank you, Robert, for that. We've got one more speaker now, which is Dave.
Okay.
Thanks
to you.
He's been waiting. Dave, could you share your screen? Are you there, Dave?
Yeah, I'm here.
Brilliant.
So 1 second. Yeah, thank you guys. That was absolutely amazing. I'm blown away, and lots and lots of resources for things in the pipeline. My name's David Ebsworth. I've been a chef the last 20 years. I have decided to swim upstream a little bit and study innovation in sustainable agriculture at the RAU. I only have 1.5 legs. I'm also a para triathlete, and I'm on the fringe of Team GB at the minute. Sort of an interesting fact. I'm in the process, alongside obviously my masters, I am in the process of setting up a community interest company with another friend from the RAU. So I'm basically talking to you tonight from a consumer perspective. I mean, I've loved coffee for a very long time. And from the perspective of starting a small business. So I'm going to talk to you very briefly about, in my opinion, what makes good coffee. So the origin, the varietals are huge. The fact that, you know, the terroir, the soil, the climate of the producing country make an absolutely huge impact on the actual coffee cherry itself. There are tons of different varieties, and a little bit like wine, if you know your coffee and you're used to drinking sort of single origin estate coffees, a bit like you know your grapes for wine drinking, so your Chardonnays and your Sauvignons, you get the same with some interesting geishas SL28s, there's Arabica, the standard go-to, which is sort of Typica variety. So that's the first point of good coffee is sourcing from and preferably someone using sort of agroecological processes. The actual processing of the coffee cherry we've been into, I mean, so many people have gone through some wonderful different techniques. You've got some really high risk natural processes, drying the coffee cherry on the bean. And these actually impart huge, wonderful flavors to the coffee bean itself. There's a host of different processing methods: honey, washed, and obviously the natural that I just spoke about. And the sort of third thing to make good coffee is the roasting of the green beans themselves. So to preserve the flavors that have been imparted from this coffee cherry, a lighter roast makes a big difference. The fourth thing, the brew method, so actually extracting the flavors from said coffee bean, sorry. And obviously you'll know these. There are a whole host of different wonderful brew methods. I'm whipping through this as fast as I can, guys, don't worry. Coffee production, we've been through some interesting, very poignant pieces this evening from all the previous speakers. There's a lot of disparity in the coffee industry. The coffee industry itself is worth over $100 billion each year. And yet, I mean, this is the full industry in total. But if you look at the growers themselves, on average, they get less than 7%, and quite often more like 2%. And that's just on the whole bean front. If you actually look at retail, I think Lewis's slides, on the average £2.50 cup of coffee, the average grower is getting a penny of that, which is quite horrendous. So huge disparity in the coffee industry, as we've been through. There's a lot of poor quality coffee about, as Robert was just talking about, lots of different blends, quite often highly roasted at high heat, and it's homogenized coffee. So many estates all coming together and blended just to try and get an average cup. The coffee production, we're going through some of the processing methods. You know, if you're using a washed method, it involves an abhorrent amount of water, and quite often when water is scarce in some of the areas where coffee is being produced, it's not great. Through to the shipping of coffee, through to, I mean, there are a lot of different angles for environmental impact. I'm going as fast as I can. I've not got my notes and it's late. So it brings me to where we are, Seb and I. So we have basically partnered up with a number of different small-scale cooperatives, one in Nicaragua, one in India, and one in Colombia. And we are in the process of launching a community interest company called Northern Nitro. So we are at the point of, I'm really sorry, I need my notes. I'm just going to talk to you because it's easier. One sec. I stopped the share. Yeah, there we go. So we've got a company on the go where we're producing cold brew coffee. We've got 3 different blends in test, all single estate origin coffees. We are looking at combining sort of nootropic formulations with probiotic formulations and some interesting other bits into the mix. We've got as far as sort of distinctive point of view and branding, obviously having these 3 prototypes ready to go. We really want to shorten the supply chains. Obviously partnering with these small scale producers, adding value to what they're doing, and giving back, making sure that, you know, the money generated will be reinvested in their hard work. I'm very much aware of time, guys, and my presentation is pretty poor compared to everyone else's, so I'm gonna I'm gonna just call it a day.
Okay, Dave. Do we open it for some questions? Does anyone have any questions there? Because Dave's starting a new coffee business, so I know we've got some experts in the room. So
I mean, the wealth of knowledge that have come out this evening is absolutely fabulous, and I'd love to talk to some of you a little bit further.
So I'm sure Robert has enough coffee in his back garden there to supply you.
Yeah.
Harrish has just messaged to say he's had to go. He's got an exam in the morning, which is his time is just 3 hours, 4 hours away. So I'm sorry, but I know he has access to coffee as well.
Yeah.
So I'll connect you up with those guys.
That'd be great. I'm sorry for all the technical problems and just for whipping through that really quickly and badly.
Yeah, sure, I would like.
If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them before. I mean, not the.
There's one in the chat.
Is there? Sorry, one sec. So yeah, no, at the minute I'm talking to a guy called John Pickering from Miele, a lovely lady called Christine Cross from Coca-Cola, and we've actually started using some of the roasting plants' coffees. So we were quite specific about what we wanted. And there's a wonderful guy called Jamie Robertson, who's the CEO of the roasting plant, who's agreed to get our first 3 prototypes made. So we're actually looking at canning at the beginning of March, with view to holding some focus groups. We've got, as I said, we've worked through distinctive tone of voice. We've got 3 brand options, and we've been sort of spreading them around, looking at and asking getting feedback from as many people as we can. Once we've got the actual prototypes canned, again, it will be taste testing the products. We've had a lot of interest from potential investors, because to go into the sort of the detail of the actual products themselves, they're single origin estate coffees. Basically, we're making a cold brew out of it, but we're putting nitrogen in the top of the cans to give a greater shelf life, and also to give it a Guinness-like texture when it gets poured out. So you pour the can into the glass, and the nitrogen actually, the smaller bubbles, gives it a wonderful crema on the top. And what's garnered a lot of interest is the inclusion of other nootropic sort of formulations. So we're looking at lion's mane mushrooms, CBD. We've actually reverse engineered Oatly Barista. So we're looking at doing a mocha, sort of a vegan cold brew coffee that's actually decaf. So it uses the sugarcane processing method to extract the majority of the caffeine, and then mixed with an English grown oat milk that we've made, CBD and cacao powder. So it's a nice, you know, chill out blend of decaf coffee, chocolate, and oat milk, vegan oat milk.
Wow, that sounds beautiful. Wow. When are you looking to launch?
There's no rush on this, really. It's a pet project that is, as I said, we've held a few focus groups on the brand. We are cuckoo canning in a facility in London at the beginning of March. So that's going to be quite exciting, actually having our 3 prototype products in our hands for people to taste. that's kind of where we're at. And once we get to that stage, and we actually get some feedback from the public on the products themselves, we've probably got. Has COVID delayed our prototyping? Yeah, massively. We had several focus groups booked in February, in person. That was mainly for, small scale groups to taste, which hasn't been able to happen. We were supposed to be having 3 days booked in with a roasting plant, and the guys there actually, because we've been formulating the products in our own kitchens, so to take it to a commercial unit and replicate it at scale was going to be an interesting challenge that was booked in for the beginning of January, which hasn't happened. So yeah, COVID massively has delayed prototyping. Coca-Cola as well. So not specifically Coca-Cola, but through the RAU enterprise, I've been introduced to a lady called Christine Cross, who has a lot of experience working with Coca-Cola, and she has helped us through many stages of development up until now, and is keen to continue.
She's also worked for Tesco's and other agri-food businesses as well. So she has an amazing amount of knowledge in how to get products into store.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And she's incredibly whip smart. Just great to talk to.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, David.
Thank you. I received a lot more than I gave then. It was wonderful to hear all those talks.
Thank you for Lewis is not here anymore, but thank you for Lewis for coming. Thank you for Simeon. Thank you for Robert. Thank you for Harrish. It's a very fascinating subject, and I think we could probably stay for a couple more hours and discuss things, but I know people got things to do.